Joe Biden has a wonderful new word to sell his failing economic agenda.
Bidenomics is working. Bidenomics is about building an economy from the middle out and the bottom up. Bidenomics is about the future. Bidenomics is just another way of saying restore the American dream. I didn't come up with the name. I really didn't. I now claim it, but...
The president trying to sell Americans on Bidenomics, but they're not buying it. Most people feel the economy is in horrible shape as their wallets get socked by high inflation and soaring interest rates. It's why a whopping 48% of Americans say that Joe Biden's policies are hurting their family. But never mind that, his delusional White House thinks Bidenomics will catch on.
Here to talk with you about Bidenomics, which is the word of the day, word of the week, word of the month, word of the year here at the White House. And Bidenomics is rooted in the belief that we grow the economy when we grow the middle class.
That's Bidenomics, growing the middle class in this country. That's where our strength is. We tried trickle down, we tried top down. Guess what? It didn't reach regular folks.
It makes good sense, Bidenomics, right? It kind of flows off the tongue really well.
And Biden's bad economy will surely be fodder for Republicans battling for the 2024 nomination. Ron DeSantis wasting no time to hammer Bidenomics.
I can tell you what Bidenomics is, Martha. It is everybody pays more for basic staples of life. People are paying way more for groceries. They're paying way more for other necessities like utilities. At the end of the day, the average working person knows it's harder to make ends meet under Joe Biden as president.
Okay, now 7 out of 10 Americans say that inflation and the economy are the nation's top problems. 52% think the country's too expensive to live in. Is going out and touting Bidenomics really the smartest campaign?
Well, it is going to be, as Larry Kudlow says, a pocketbook election. And he was on the Fox News Rundown this morning. I listened to that, and he makes the point that everybody is feeling, which is wages have not kept up with inflation. So prices are up. Even if you've got a raise, you can't keep up, so that you feel it. And one of the things that is interesting about politics over the years is that in presidential elections, people don't necessarily think for somebody running for re-election about what you're going to do for them in the next 4 years. They remember what it's been like the past 3 years. And so people who have struggled with gas prices, food prices, everything that they want to buy is a little bit more expensive, especially younger people, Judge, when they think about the mortgage rates and the fact they can't find a house. And then you add on top of those things, just not just cost of living, but your well-being, your pursuit of happiness, the crime, things like that. So that's why you have a huge number of people that say the country's moving in the wrong direction. I think on this, with Bidenomics, they had no choice but to go ahead and embrace it. It reminds me of when Republicans very critically talked about the health care plan that Obama wanted to do as Obamacare. Right. And that was a criticism for a long time. And then finally, Obama, I remember at one of the events, he said, and you know what? Yeah, let's call it Obamacare. And then it became, eventually, it actually is pretty popular. Bidenomics reminds me of, remember we talked about Bidenflation. Yeah. Yes, it does kind of flow off the tongue, but in a way that reminds people that the inflation issues are not necessarily what people, they want people to think about the CHIPS Act and the infrastructure bill as if that's like real day-to-day economics. That's not what people are dealing with in their paychecks.
All right, Jesse, consumer goods are up 15.5%. Real wages have literally decreased, I think, 26 months straight. So people's salaries are not holding up. So in line with what Dana was just saying, I mean, how do they sell this with a straight face?
There was a lot of trickle down in the previous presidency. He slashed taxes and regulations, and middle class wages exploded at the fastest clip in 50 years. $5,000, $10,000 for middle class Americans. Wages are going down with Joe Biden. That's a fact. Inflation, prices are up. That's a fact. Just last year, the stock market was down. People are not earning money in Joe Biden's economy. That's a fact. I don't care what you call it. Whatever it is isn't working. And Joe doesn't even know what Bidenomics means. This was supposed to launch his economic message for the campaign. This was failure to launch. He gets out there. First, he has a sleep machine indentation all over his face. His heart stops when he sleeps, so he's got a
Can I ask
mask
you a
on.
question? When his heart stops, is Kamala Harris the president?
For a second, the president again. Right. And that machine is what's keeping this country alive. And then he comes out and he confuses Iraq with Afghanistan. Fine. Just don't send Iraq $800 million. Then he comes out and he just babbles and makes no sense, and it's uninspiring. And I get it. I get it. You're doing the best you can. Dana's right. The CHIPS Act's not sexy. Infrastructure's not sexy. The Inflation Reduction Act's not sexy. You're not going to see a new bridge for 20 years. You're not going to see these chips come out on your phones for another 10 years. You can't touch it. You can't feel it. You can't even smell Joe Biden's policy agenda. And he's going to have to run on pretty much nothing.
Well, you know, this is typical Joe Biden. I mean, he basically is saying that as it relates to inflation, he said it was that bad when I got here, when it was 1.6 inflation, and last year was 8. I think it's down to 5 now. I mean, can we count on him to tell the truth?
No. And I'm going to call you Jiro. It's a combination of Jeanine Pirro.
Yes,
like
exactly.
Right? Because you know what? There's nothing like smushing two words together and treat it like it's some big policy success, right? A word replaces achievement. Hey, Biden, economics, put it together. Wow, it's not even clever like brunch, right? Yeah. And you know what I call Larry Kudlow? What? I call him Ludlow. It saves so much time. It's Larry Kudlow, Ludlow. But these are the same people that think they're clever when they add gate to an issue, or when they write a piece on historical first, or when they see a trend. And a trend is when two things happen in a day, and they go, oh, we need a third one, and then they go and they look for it, and it might not be like it, but they'll still do the piece. So all of these reporters get so excited that, oh my goodness, we have a word. And like Joe's like, well, I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm not even alive. But no one's defined Bidenomics, so I will help them define it. This is what Bidenomics is, and it's real. Bidenomics, selling influence for money to foreign countries, then finding ways not to pay taxes. That's Bidenomics, right? Hunter should get a Nobel Prize in economics for coming up with this. He's not going to jail. He's raking in millions while never actually doing a thing. That is Bidenomics. And that's when he raised the GDP of our country by raising the GDP of his family. Like, as long as they put their money back into the economy, I think that Biden should buy American crack, not foreign crack.
That's good.
Yeah. I'm done. What do we call you? How do we smash it?
You can't smush me.
Gutfeld.
I'll take Gutfeld.
All right.
Jarloff.
All right. A study by Northwestern Mutual found that 1.27 million is the magic number Americans think they need to retire comfortably. And the average person who responded to this has 89,000.
Yeah. It's something that I worry about. Everybody worries about this who's young. Dana talks about what's going on with the interest rates. We wanted to buy an apartment. It just doesn't make sense. The amount of interest that we're going to pay on principal, just not worth it for us now. So we're going to pay a highly inflated rent because we need to stay in the city for work. It's a problem. Millennials are not able to get on the property ladder, which was a hallmark of what the American dream was. It's an issue. But Joe Biden has a tremendous economic record to run on. There's a nifty chart floating around social media. Everyone should check it out. The U.S. has the highest post-pandemic growth in the G7 and the lowest inflation. So all the countries we compare ourselves to, 13.1 million jobs created. So yes, all the ones that were lost during COVID came back. And then we're gaining jobs at a faster clip than we did under the Trump presidency. 800K in manufacturing. There are articles all over talking about the manufacturing boom. We know unemployment is below 4%. We have 35,000 infrastructure projects. And before you say, oh, you're not going to see a bridge for 20 years or whatever, there are Republican senators humiliating themselves on Twitter now, talking about how excited they are that the broadband is coming to them, $3 billion going on. Tommy Tuberville, I think is how you pronounce it, says like the broadband's coming. And then Joe Biden gets to quote retweet him and say, see you at the groundbreaking, which is what he did to Mitch McConnell. John Cornyn's been doing it, Nancy Mace, Elise Stefanik. These are people who voted against the things that their constituents are now going to get, and they want to take credit. And they don't deserve it for voting against it. 10.5 million new applicants for small business loans in the last 2 years. That's the fastest we've seen that happen over a 2-year period. So, one of my favorites, U.S. consumer confidence, talked about that. It's at a 17-month high. I'm not saying that's the right track.
From where?
I thought you were going to say 17 year.
From where?
From COVID. You think COVID didn't? Well, but it does matter when you say that he doesn't have stuff to run on. It's just not true. I'm not saying that it's going to turn people into thinking that this is the most amazing economic period in their lives, but you can't refute these.
The American looks at their paycheck. It's less. It can't buy what it used to buy. They can't retire. You can't buy a house. Stop talking about the jobs after COVID.
Why? Because those are the reality of the jobs.
Yeah, well, you know what? He lied about the jobs.
He
lied. He lied. He said he created millions of new jobs when it was the COVID jobs that were coming back. He lied about Afghanistan. He said it was a successful operation, enormously successful.
Okay.
I mean,
Afghanistan has nothing to do with Bidenomics.
It has to do with this guy lying. That's what it has to do with.
I'm old enough to remember Jessica Tarlov complaining about the price of berries.
Just Driscoll. And they're the Lamborghini of berries.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.